Round 2 of the Blue Devils and the Orange didn't need 4 extra minutes this time, but it was still a thriller down to the wire with Duke picking up an 18-15 victory down in Durham against the Syracuse Orange. It was a two-headed monster that took over for the Duke Blue Devils, and it's been that way all season as they continue their quest for a national championship. Here on Orange Press Pass, we're here to break down the entire game. We've got Leo, Silverman, and Sam Reis in studio. It's OPP, and it starts right now. Thanks so much for joining us in the CitrusTV studios for Orange Press Pass alongside Leo, Silverman, and Sam Reis. I'm Nick Zelaya, breaking down this 18-15 loss for Syracuse to close out the regular season. 8-7 is the final record for the Orange. Duke sweeps the season series against Syracuse, and the Blue Devils, they just never trailed in this game. They got up early. Syracuse kept it tied. It was back and forth in the first quarter, but Duke was able to pull away around the second or third quarter and get this victory. But Leo, what stuck out to you on this one?
Well, Nick, you mentioned Duke never really were behind in this one, and it's because of one thing and one thing only to me, Sam. Face-offs. They matter, ladies and gentlemen, and this game showed it in absolute spades. I mean, there was a point where it was like 16-5 towards face-offs, and when you look at the only run that SU really put together, that four-goal run sprint, it was because they were finally winning face-offs, and they didn't have to worry about causing turnovers or getting the ball back on the defensive end, and they could just go out and run and play offense, and that's really the only shot the Qs had, so face-offs matter.
Face-offs have been an issue all season. Defensively, that's been a concern all season. And today, there were just lapses at certain points that proved to be costly in a close game like this where Syracuse tried to keep up with Duke. In fact, there was that stretch in the second quarter, Leo, where Duke scored 3 goals in 57 seconds. Syracuse just slow on some adjustments, and it proved costly in this one.
We'll touch on the Syracuse defense a bit more later on, but it felt as if it was a lot of the same suspects hurting Syracuse for this Duke Blue Devils team. But let's go down to it in Durham. We had our reporter, Peter Elliott, down there to cover the game, but let's see how all the action went down between Syracuse and Duke. The second time these two teams had to face one another. Duke, number 2 in the country, 11-2. Syracuse, just over 500 on the season, only 1-4 in conference play, though, and it only took a bit over a minute for Dyson Williams already to score to give Duke an early 1-0 lead. 2-1, Joey Spallina, he's just been spectacular all season. Andrew McAdory making it a 4-3 game, finds the top corner, and hey, when the grease gets hot, Dyson Williams, he just keeps on cooking. 6 goals on the day for the sophomore, scoring there to make it a 6-3 game. Now just a 2-goal ball game in the second quarter. Syracuse once again answers. Cole Kurse scores.
Yeah, it's like Cole Kurse has been the energy guy in the Newhouse building and on the field today as well for this Orange team.
SU hanging around, but a 10-6 game going into the locker room. Second half, just more of Dyson Williams. Guess what? He's still him. Scores again there. Now a 13-8 game. This was the quarter where Duke started to pull away a bit. Syracuse trying to hang around. Owen Hild scores to make it 13-9 Duke. Brennan O'Neill. It's the Dyson Williams and Brennan O'Neill show anytime you step on the field against the Duke Blue Devils. But to start the fourth quarter, hey, Cole Kurse got it going, Sam, for this Syracuse team to score 3 straight goals out of the quarter.
He did. It seemed like Syracuse was down and out. The Orange put up a fight to begin this fourth frame.
Michael Leo, don't know how he got to the studio so quick, Leo. Michael Leo with the goal for Syracuse. And then Duke, the finishing touches. Aiden McGuire scores 17-13, make it 18-15, the final over Syracuse. Syracuse ends the regular season 8-7. Duke 12-2, 5-1 in ACC play. And you see the 2 names right there, Dyson and Brennan. They did it all for the Blue Devils.
And Nick, all year it's been, if you're an opposing team, you plan for Brennan O'Neill, but I feel like that's got to shift if Dyson Williams keeps putting up performances like he did today.
An unbelievable performance from Williams. And you see right there, Syracuse put up a fight. Joey Spallina bounced back after last week's performance, but it just wasn't enough for the Orange.
So that's the score, and Peter Elliott was down in Durham for the game, like I mentioned. And it's always great to have our reporters there because they get the insight. But Peter, I want to ask you about the whole season as a whole. You know, they start out 3-0. They go through a tough stretch, Syracuse. They finish the year 8-7. So how do you personally summarize this season for Gary Gait and the Syracuse Orange?
Yeah, Nick, when you look at the illustrious history of this Syracuse men's lacrosse program, they've only missed the NCAA tournament just 4 times since 1979. So the standard is to make the tourney, and when you don't do that, it seems like a little bit of a disappointment. But I think you can't view this year as a letdown because you have to zoom out a little bit and think of last year. They went 4-10. That was a rough start to the Gary Gate era, but this year we've seen so much improvement at almost every position group, and really they're just one position group away from making the NCAA tournament. And I think that was the face-off group. Almost every opposing coach we talked to after this season said they're scared to see Syracuse in the future because of how good this young core is. If anything, we've learned that this Syracuse team has the juice for the future. There's a lot of there's a bright note on the horizon. And there's 2 more Spallina brothers coming in next year's class. I think things are looking up for the Syracuse program. You can't be all doom and gloom just because you didn't make the NCAA tournament for 2 years in a row.
Hey, Peter, thanks again for joining us. You talked about that young core, and this year the success has really been towards the offensive side. One of the best man-up offenses in the nation. But in this game against the Blue Devils didn't give up a penalty until the 4th quarter. How resilient was this Duke defense today to get that win?
Yeah, I thought the Duke defense played pretty well against a really good Syracuse offense. And you mentioned how good the Syracuse man-up offense is. The best in the country. They have more man-up goals than any other team by a wide margin. They didn't have a lot of success on the power play this game. But I really thought it was the Duke offense that won them the game. It was Brennan O'Neill and Dyson Williams that just gashed this Syracuse defense, scoring 10 goals, 10 of Duke's 18 on the day. And I was impressed, sure, by Duke's defense. Wilson Stevenson, I thought, played a good game and stepped up against Syracuse's attack. But really, it wasn't the defense that won it for Duke. After all, they let in 15 goals. It was the offense that carried the way for this Blue Devils team, and that's how it's been all season long.
Hey, Peter, I want to focus quickly on that second quarter and the face-off discrepancy. Duke won 8 of 9 face-offs in that quarter. So how much do you think that played a role in the shift of momentum as the Blue Devils pulled away in the latter stages of that frame?
Yes, Sam, it's been the story of the season for the Syracuse men's lacrosse team. After every game, when you ask Gary Gate about struggles with the face-off X, he's kind of laughed. But after this game, he just kind of sighed. He's clearly frustrated with how poorly this face-off unit has fared all season long. Johnny Richusa and Jack Fine. They went just 8 for 27 today at the dot. But the remarkable thing is that's not even the worst they've done all season, let alone against Duke. Back on March 5th, they went 9 for 30. Clearly something has to change at that face-off unit, and after the game, Gary Gate all but said that you will not be seeing a lot of Johnny Richusa and Jack Fine at the dot next year. It has to be the first unit that Syracuse addresses when the transfer portal opens up on May 8th. They can't go on winning just going 8 for 27 at the dot. At halftime, they only won 18% of their face-offs. That won't be the case next season if Syracuse goes out and gets a good transfer.
Yeah, Peter, you're talking a lot about next season. I hate to be negative, but this may be the end for your Mille Lacs coverage for Citrus TV. Excellent job, though, throughout the spring, and thanks so much for joining us from Durham. We'll take a quick break here on Orange Press Pass. We're just getting started, though. We're diving deeper into this 18-15 victory for the Blue Devils. What went wrong for Syracuse? Well, our analysts, Leo and Sam, they will tell you after the break.
Here's to the straggly ones, the first ones. But hey, I look good with this ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The itchy ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones, and the absolutely filthy ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Back here on Orange Press Pass with Leo Silverman and Sam Reis, I'm Nick Zelaya, diving deeper into this Duke victory over Syracuse, 18-15. They sweep the season series. They won the first one back here inside the JMA Wireless Dome. It was a thriller, 14-13 in overtime. Duke scored the game-winning goal with 54 seconds left in overtime, but this one they handled business from start to finish. And it really all starts with the faceoffs. Jake Naso, one of the best in the entire country at the faceoff position. Back here in February against Syracuse, 21 for 30, and today very similar, 63% of his faceoffs he won. And Syracuse, back in the first game, tried someone different. They went with Johnny Rachuza. This time it was Jack Fine who got a majority of the workload, but still, they just were not very lucky when it came to the faceoff, Leo. It
sounds like a broken record, right? We're a broken record by this point. It's been the biggest problem for Syracuse for honestly 3 years, since that magical Jacob Fopp season in 2020, and it showed here once again. And we hate to keep beating the same sort of dead horse here, but my problem comes down to they keep switching off, right? Jack Fine, Johnny Rachuza. I felt like this season they needed to pick one guy and ride him out, but now you're just throwing them out. If they succeed, such short leash, how are you supposed to have either guy succeed? And now, I guess this is the transfer portal.
I agree with you, Leo. When we're talking the final game of the season and that Syracuse still switching out guys with Jack Fine there for 22 of the draws, Rachuza 13, it's clear that it's still an issue, and it's been an issue all year long. You can't say it's surprising because it's been a concern throughout the campaign, but of course it was a major factor in determining today's result, Nick.
It's a really good point, Sam. If it's the last game of the season, you're still trying to figure out who you wanted face-off to be your starter. You're not going to bode too well, but a couple of guys that do play really well is on the Duke side, Dyson Williams and Brendan O'Neill. They have been spectacular. They have terrorized this Syracuse defense for the last 2 seasons this year so far. O'Neill, 8 goals and 4 assists in those 2 games against Cuse. Dyson Williams, 8 goals and 1 assist. So they have just been a problem, not only for Syracuse, but teams across the country, and it just feels like when they get rolling, it is so hard to stop them, Sam.
It is. Dyson Williams in particular today was magnificent. A 6-goal performance. He leads the team this season with 47 goals, and the senior just put on a show today, quite frankly, and with the postseason just around the corner, if Williams is only starting to heat up and plays like this in the NCAA tournament, this is a scary Blue Devils team that could go pretty deep in the tourney.
And the thing is, right, Sam, this season, the recipe to beat Duke was to take down Brendan O'Neill. And if Williams is heating up like this, it's going to bode real well for their title chances come NCAA tourney time. But how about Brendan O'Neill? I mean, he still had 6 points in total, 4 goals and 2 assists, despite the fact that he was constantly getting doubles thrown at him. I mean, I remember the 15th goal they scored, he had 2 Syracuse defenders falling down, and he was still able to score. This guy is just so absolutely phenomenal, creating for his teammates and scoring no matter what a defense throws at him.
They're a big reason why Duke is a national championship contender this year, and will be until, Dyson Williams will be back next year, O'Neill most likely again next year, but it's not just those two that have been hurting this Syracuse defense, especially over the last few games, but North Carolina hurt them, Virginia hurt them. Over the last 5 games, Syracuse is giving up 17 goals per game. And Leo, especially today, they gave up a few goals early on, and it seems like the defense just can't get any momentum to help the offense maybe get back into this game. It just feels like goal after goal for the other team.
It really just feels like this defense is broken in so many ways, and it's hard to figure out what the issue is. But for me, I really just think it's a talent issue, and I hate to be brutally honest here, but guys like Nick Kikamo, Caden Cole, who came in as these high-touted defensive prospects, just aren't cutting it. Obviously, a lot of people are throwing some shade Petromala's way, but I think John Eads a week ago talked about really well. It's just not Petromala's schemes is the issue here. I just think they're just not being executed well. There were so many times in this game where Duke were getting wide open shots because these doubles, these switches, these zones were not being executed correctly. And they just need more talent in this team, Sam, for them to succeed.
You hit the nail on the head. And against a lethal offense like Duke, Syracuse was just simply too slow at times, whether it was adjusting on some slides and then letting shots get through that really shouldn't have on some occasions. And even on, I believe it was Dyson Williams' 5th goal, they left them wide open right around the circle, double teaming someone else, leaving a lethal goal scorer right at the edge of the crease, and that just can't happen in a game like this.
I will thank the Syracuse defense, though, for helping me choose this Orange Press Pass player of the game, because it made it a lot easier. Dyson Williams, the player of the game, no doubt about that. 6 goals, 1 assist on the day. It's his third career game with at least 6 goals. He did it this past year back in early February. He scored 7 against High Point, but now 47 goals on the season for the sophomore, which ranks 3rd in the nation. And he even scored every single quarter of this game. So Dyson Williams dominated from the start, 15 minutes in the first quarter to when the clock hit 0 in the 4th. We'll take another break here on Orange Press Pass. When we come back, it's award season. We'll be giving out the Pressies. How about it? Rookie of the Year. How about what if Syracuse? I'm not going to finish a sentence. We'll do it later. We'll be right back in 60 seconds.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Back here on OPP with Leo Silverman and Sam Reis, I'm Nick Zelaya, and I feel very honored to be able to do this because I was able to give the benchies for my last show last semester for On the Bench for some basketball and football awards, and now we get to do the Pressies for the lacrosse season. A much improved lacrosse season for Syracuse. Last year finishing 4-10, this year back over 500, 8-7 in the second year of Gary Gates' campaign. But let's start with you here, Leo, and let's go Rookie of the Year. And I feel like we all might know what the answer will be for this, but just tell us anyways. I'll let you do that.
Well, Nick, I'm actually going to leave that layup to Sam because I feel like it's way too perfect if I pick Michael Leo. I have to pick Michael Leo, right? In case anyone doesn't know, I am, in fact, Michael Leo Silverman.
Thank you.
Michael Leo is my Rookie of the Year, and honestly, he's had a very successful rookie campaign when you think about it. 17 goals on an offense with a bunch of stacked players. You have Jackson Burtwhistle returning, obviously Joey Spallina, Owen Hiltz back from injury, and this guy steps up and scores 17 goals. But Sam, what really moved me with Michael Leo this season was his clutch gene. I mean, this entire team looked on Michael Leo, a freshman, to score that game-winning goal against UNC on the road. For him to step up and score that goal, too, is just phenomenal. So for me, he's my Rookie of the Year, but there's obviously a much better pick, Sam.
I guess I'll take the obvious choice. I like Leo picking Michael Leo, but there's a guy named Joey Spallina you might know, and he just balled out this season. 36 goals, 32 assists. This was the #1 recruit in the country for his class. For a lot of people, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And you might remember, he had that rusty performance in the opener against Vermont and responded in a big way the rest of the campaign. Not only can he score, he's also a playmaker, as I just mentioned, and he really took the role of being a leader of this team, even though he's so young.
And it's hard to live up to the hype, especially being the #1 player. You've got your siblings coming in soon, but he has surely done that, near the top of the points list, and not just freshmen, but in the entire nation. Sam, I want to go to you for this one. Most improved player. I talked about it earlier. This is a team as a whole that has really improved, but is there one specific player that maybe stands out to you most as the most improved player?
Absolutely, and it comes at an important position, and it's a transfer. That's Will Mark between the pipes. The LIU transfer was magnificent, and this was a position where there were a lot of question marks because last season this was a big issue. They knew they needed to go in the transfer portal, get someone. Will Mark played for a 500 LIU team. I don't think any of us knew a whole lot about him, and he stood on his head in multiple occasions. You take that Duke overtime game earlier in the season, for example, he was absolutely phenomenal. You see some of the stats right there in 2023. He was big time and probably won a couple of games for Syracuse, quite frankly.
And Sam, some of those stats are definitely look pretty similar, but the slate of teams he did that against this year versus at LIU, completely different level of talent. But for me, most improved player is somebody, I'm going to stay a little bit homegrown. I'm going to go to Sam Alexo here because last year he was playing behind arguably the best long stick D-midi in the nation. I mean, hey, he got drafted by the PLL for a reason, Brett Kennedy, and now he has to step into that role and replace some of that. What has he done this year? Oh, just casually been the best defender on this Syracuse defense. And you can get a look at there, the ground balls, causes turnovers, 26 is a total. Nobody else, Nick, was anywhere close in that margin on this SU team. And yes, does that kind of degrade the entire defense for SU a bit? Yes. But the fact that the best, on all the talent that was lost last year, Sam Alexo was able to somewhat replace Brett Kennedy's duties and long stick D-midi is absolutely phenomenal. And they should have him be hopefully a cornerstone for the rest of that defense as it shores out next year.
He's taken a huge step in 2023. And Sam, to your point about Will Mark, you go back to that first game against Duke, he had over 20 saves, a season high at the time, really kept them in that game, and reason it went to overtime. But Leo, going back to you now for our final Pressier, and it's the What If Award, and we talked about this before the show, kind of, what if Syracuse did this? What if they did that in a specific game? Could the season be different? Could they be thinking NCAA tournament bound? Leo, what if Syracuse blank? Just finish the sentence for me.
Well, let's just stick with the Blue Devils. What if Syracuse took down Duke in the Dome in overtime? You heard Nick say it. Will Mark had 22 saves, a career high in that one. And the craziest part about this game was it was a 66 to 32 shot discrepancy. Wow. And SU was still somehow in this game, and it was all thanks to Will Mark. But they push it to overtime. They not only do that, they get the ball with a chance to win this thing. And what do? They have a scrappy offensive possession with no real offense, no real good screens. And Jackson Burtwhistle was forced to take a really hard shot that's saved, and they lose that game. And what if they won that game? Well, now Duke is number 2 in the nation. They look like one of the national title contenders out of a stacked ACC. How much could that win have boosted the RPI, the overall rankings for the Syracuse team? They might be a tourney team right now if they had somehow pulled off that win. And we're not even talking about how a win like that could have contributed to the momentum and the lack of that that they had after losing that game.
Well, I'm going to say, what if Syracuse beat Johns Hopkins? I'm looking at one of the key non-conference matchups where the Orange most certainly had a chance to come out on top in this one. 11-9 was the final score in favor of Hopkins, but make no mistake, the Orange were leading with 11 minutes left in this game, 9-8, and then kind of collapsed in the late stages. Their offense just was stagnant. Johns Hopkins put them to bed. This is a Hopkins team that's right now 4 in the country. That loss for Syracuse capped off a 4-game losing streak, which ultimately really affected their tournament chances. If Syracuse wins that, they're 4-3 instead of 3-4. We're looking at a whole different story. And for the Orange, that was a tough loss at the Dome, Nick.
You see the record 3-4. They started 3-0. So they really, this could have been a season-defining win if they could pull that off. I'll throw one more out there, I know. Typically, we don't give out the awards, but I'll throw in just in case. You look back to the Notre Dame game. I'll paint the picture. Syracuse is up 12-11 early in the fourth quarter. They almost score. They start celebrating like they scored. They didn't score. Notre Dame saves it. 8 seconds later, they go down, score to make it a 12-12 game, and finish the game on a 9-0 run. If Syracuse wins that one, they're on a 6-game winning streak entering that game against UVA. So what if? What if we could change the season however we wanted to? We'll take one last break here on Orange Press Pass. When we come back, we'll look around the NCAA. Plus, It's our final show of the semester, so some last thoughts on this show. And Leo and I, sad face, our last shows here at Citrus. Make sure you don't go anywhere.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Wrapping up here on Orange Press Pass with Leo Silverman and Sam Reis. I'm Nick Zelaya. Let's take a look around the NCAA. No other teams in the actual Atlantic Coast Conference in action besides Syracuse and Duke, but plenty of lacrosse action as we get close to playoff play. Cornell and Princeton going down to the wire in a top 20 matchup. Leo, what stands out to you?
Well, you know, Nick, last year it was all about the Ivies. They knocked off a lot of big-time teams in other conferences. Now it feels like the Ivies have taken a bit of a step back, but the big dog, Cornell, picking up that final win in OT, not only really locks them in for a pretty high tournament spot, but might mess around and throw Princeton on the bubble. Who knows? Selection Sunday coming up pretty soon, Sam.
Definitely. And how about a scare for Denver against Marquette? Is DU legit? That's been a conversation. They were brought all the way to overtime against Marquette, but pulled it off in the end. A lot of intriguing results with the tourney right around the corner.
How about Yale with another win? If Yale wins a championship, another Connecticut championship coming home. We got Quinnipiac hockey and UConn basketball. Yale bring it home. Let's go to the ACC final standings. With this win today, Duke clinches a share of the title championship, which is, Sam, I mean, Duke has been so impressive all year.
They really have been. This Duke team is the real deal. Look at that. The top 3 teams in the country, all in the ACC.
Great.
Tomorrow, we also have UVA taking on Notre Dame to cap off the regular season. This has been a stacked ACC conference throughout, with all teams ranked in the top 20. And I think you could see 3 teams from this conference in the Final Four.
It is not a crazy scenario. It very much looks like we're trending that way. Maybe sub in a Maryland defending champions, maybe play around with all those Ivies. But my God, especially looking forward, you talk about Notre Dame versus Virginia. Virginia went into Notre Dame's building, Arlada Stadium, and served them a smackdown. And now it's revenge on the mind that knocked Notre Dame off of their perfect season. I have confidence in those Fighting Irish to make up some serious noise. Shout out Marco Napolitano.
The ACC tournament is going to be must-watch TV, absolutely. Sam, Syracuse falls to Duke 18-15, finishes the regular season 8-7, 1-5 in conference play. Sam, your final words on this game.
Yeah, well, I'll put the final bow on the season, quite frankly, and that's that this was a season of progress. Syracuse didn't make the NCAA tournament, but we have to remember they're coming off of a historically bad campaign. So, and with such a young team, the pieces are there. That was proven this year. They can improve on faceoffs, maybe get someone from the transfer portal to fulfill that role. Tighten up defensively. This is a team that absolutely can and probably should be in the NCAA tournament next year. So the building blocks are there. It's a young team that's going to mature quite a bit.
Yes, and you heard our reporter Peter Elliott say this will be likely the fifth time since 1979 this team has missed the tourney.
Yep.
And for me, my final thought is simply, it doesn't feel like it, but this is a successful season like you were talking about. There's so much young core to look at, especially on the offensive end. And if the transfer portal can go as well as it did last year with Will Mark, maybe at the faceoff, it certainly could be a very good season coming forward. And I just quickly want to pivot. It is my unfortunate last show with CitrusTV Sports. It's been an absolute pleasure working in every show that I came here as a freshman, wondering if I would ever get on this desk. And to end it with OPP, a show that I've worked behind the scenes for and in front of the camera, is an absolute absolute pleasure. It's not just my final show, though. Unfortunately, Nick, we're taking that mantle together.
It is my final show as well. And I didn't write anything. I'm not using a teleprompter or anything like that, so we're just kind of going off the cuff.
Yep.
It's been pretty cool to be part of CitrusTV, especially when you get to say that you were on all 4 sports shows, and I guess technically 5 now that you count Beat the Bookie as a show. It's been an absolute privilege, and there's a reason I wore this outfit. I know usually I have a pocket square. Everyone's like, oh, Nick, where's your pocket square and all that type of stuff. This is what I wore. I went on my hard drive today and looked for my first freshly squeezed back freshman year. This is the exact fit we were wearing, so we went with it today. But Leo, congrats on everything you've done here in the sports and the entertainment department. Sam, you've been good all year doing your coverage, and I expect your butt in this seat next year. I'll be watching on YouTube.
Yep.
So that'll do it for Orange Press Pass for Leo Silverman and Sam Reis. One final time this semester. Thanks so much for joining us.